So were you aware that you can take any photo in your Photos app library, zoom into it, and then instantly crop it so it fits into the wallpaper format? Or that you can actually copy edits from one photo and then paste it onto another photo and have those edits come through to that brand new photo? These are just some of the features that Apple's added to the Photos application over time because it has been about 16 years since the original Photos app came out, and now this Photos app is extremely robust and it has a bunch of features that are hidden away that can be used on a day-to-day basis. So that's what we're going to do in this video. We're going to talk about all the features in the Photos app from the beginning stuff all the way to the very end and the more advanced stuff so you guys can become fully aware of what you can actually do with the native Photos application because, like I mentioned, it's extremely robust. Let's get into it. So let's get right into this video, everybody, and to start off, we're going to hop right into the Photos application. And I want this Photos application walkthrough to be for anybody who's either brand new to an iPhone or even somebody like myself who's been using an iPhone for 15 or 16 years because this app has become more and more robust as time has gone on. But when you first jump into the Photos application, I want to talk about just basic navigation and what everything kind of shows you everywhere on the actual screen. So when it comes to organization and when you open up the app, you're actually in the library right now and you're in the all photos, which is basically just a big bucket of every single photo that you've taken in chronological order from the phone itself. So on the bottom right hand corner, this is the most recent photo, and then all the way at the top is going to be the oldest photo. Now, so some quick little navigation tidbits that you should know is that yes, by default it is 5 across, but if you want to maybe zoom in, you can actually pinch to zoom, and now you have 3 across, or if you want to zoom all the way out, you can get way more and get way more granular. So as you can see, you kind of get an infinite canvas of all the photos that you've ever taken, and as you zoom in and out, it'll let you know what time period these photos were taken on. So March 2024 is probably most of the photos that are in this view, and as you zoom in, March 13th to 15th, and you can move around down, and as you move, the date changes. So that's a quick little secret that not a lot of people know about, but then also you get to see that we do have 21,400 photos and over 3,000 videos, and this shows you pretty much everything that you have when it comes to your Photos application in the Photos app. And then you can also see that it's syncing across all my iCloud devices because I do pay for Apple One, which gives me 2 terabytes of iCloud, so whatever photos I take on this phone will show up on my iPad, will show up on the phone I'm using, will show up on my computer, and any other iDevice that I have with my Apple ID. Some other navigation tidbits to look at is down here, which still is basically organized on days, as well as months, and then years. Basically what it does is it essentially finds a thumbnail for each one of these sections, right? So for the days, this is going to be the main one, and pretty much just consolidates everything in the same day. Unfortunately, we're wearing a boot now, which is kind of tough, but good thing is you guys only see me from the shoulders up for the most part. And also when it comes to months, you get to see it this way, and then years, it also picks a thumbnail for each year, which is awesome. And then another quick little secret is if you are maybe just scrolling through and you see something over here, but you want to go back to where you were without having to scroll all the way down, just tap on all photos and it brings you all the way down to the most recent photo that you're taking. And then when it comes to this top right hand corner, we're going to click on these 3 dots and you get a bunch of different options here. So the first things you see here are both libraries, personal library and shared library. We're going to get into shared libraries in a little bit, but you can basically filter based on all the libraries that you have, if it's shared libraries or if it's both libraries. So shared libraries is exactly what it sounds like. It's a library that you share with somebody else or a group of people that also get uploaded to that actual album, but we'll touch on that in a little bit. We also have the shared library indicator, which basically lets you know if a photo is in the shared library or not. You can also zoom in with touch over here and zoom back out. And then also you can change the aspect ratio grid. So as you can see right now, all these are 1 by 1 kind of squares, even though each one of these images is a different size in terms of aspect ratio. You can change that to actually be maybe 16 by 9 if you want to, square photo grid. So pretty much just a different way to view everything. And then also, like I mentioned, you can actually filter based on favorites, based on edited photos, videos, and even get into more filters right here if you want to, if it's something that you want to get into. And then lastly, you can actually see all the photos that you've taken and it's shown on the map. So you can see that I have photos taken all over the world, and this is one of my favorite personal features because you can kind of just relive all the moments that you've had in the past. Like we've traveled to Europe, and if you go over here and you zoom in a little bit more, you can see that we've been to London and Scotland and Barcelona and Madrid. So it's kind of just like an ongoing map of all the photos that you've ever taken. You can zoom into the US here. You can see that we've been all over the US, which has been awesome. So it kind of lets you just give you a bird's eye view of where you've been, with who you've been with, and things like that. So those are the basic navigation tools that you definitely need to know when it comes to the actual Photos app and how to actually use it overall. So now let's get into an actual photo and show you guys exactly all the stuff that you have in an actual photo. So here we're going to click on this one. This is a picture of my dog. And the first thing you're greeted with is these 4 buttons down here. So this share button is very self-explanatory. You can share via AirDrop, via mail, iMessage, whatever the case may be. You can copy the photo, add it to a shared album. So you have a bunch of different options that you have in terms of how to share it and where to share it exactly. You can even create an Apple Watch face immediately, assign it to a contact, print it out if you have a wireless printer that you can use, and things like that. So there are a bunch of options when it comes to sharing each individual photo. And then you can actually heart it right here and add it to your favorites, which we're going to have a whole section about favorites here in a second. But then you have this I button. So this I button is basically called visual lookup, which we might touch on a little bit more after the fact, but this also gives you all the information about the photo itself. So the visual lookup piece is this part right here where it says Shiba Inu, because it recognizes that not only is it a dog, but it also recognizes what type of dog it is. But then also you get all the information that you would need when it comes to the actual photo itself. And this is very important because when it comes to search criteria, that's where we're going to get into all this. So the first thing you can do is actually add a caption. So maybe you can type in doggo over here. We'll press done. And then you have that caption. So if I ever type in the word doggo into the search bar, which is going to be a perfect segue here soon, it should come up as one of the first photos. But then you also get all the metadata in here, right? So it lets you know, use an Apple iPhone 15, use the main camera, the 24 megapixel sensor. It lets you know the aspect ratio, how big of a photo it is, the ISO, the millimeter length. It even lets you know where you took that photo, what city you were in. You can adjust all this stuff. So you can technically adjust a lot of this information if you want to. So like the date when it was originally taken, you can adjust that, or maybe even delete the date if you want to. You can adjust the location as well and type in no location if you want to, or add a different one. So these are all just different ways that you can actually manage your photos, and the captions part is good when it comes to actually organizing and having tags to find certain photos. And then of course the last option you have down here is to actually just trash it completely and send it to your deleted photos. So then, as I mentioned, that's a perfect segue into the search functionality, because the search functionality is one of the most robust ones in the Apple iMessage because of machine learning and AI getting involved and everything being on device. So in the search bar, you can actually search based on a bunch of different criteria, right? You can search based on photos, you can search based on location, you can search based on people's names, periods of time, even objects. So for instance, if I want to type in a dog, it'll not only find all the dog pictures, but then it'll also try to autofill with dog sport, dog agility, Shiba dog, poodle dog, which are all photos available in my photo library. So you can see that these are all pictures of dogs. You can actually click on here to see what types of words have dogs as well. So it's very easy to find certain things when it comes to a dog. But you can even type in, let's say, London, and it'll take me to all the pictures that I've taken in London when we were there last summer. You can also do 1 year ago today, so it shows you even some predetermined search terms. So maybe if you want to search up what happened maybe last St. Patrick's Day, you type in 1 year ago, or in the spring, or dining, or trips. Like if I want to type in Disney, Disney World does come up, and there's a bunch of pictures with Mickey Mouse and things like that. So the search tool is very, very robust, and this is a perfect situation when it comes to live text, which we'll get into a little bit. But let's say there is some text that you want to look up. So for instance, if I want to type in iPadOS, because I know I have some thumbnails in here, iPadOS does show up. So it'll look for text, it'll highlight that text, which is awesome. So that is how you navigate in the searches. And again, it shows you a bunch of preloaded criteria, and then it also shows your recently searched right here, which then you can clear out. So you can search based on categories, places, people, pets, and moments. All right, so now that we know how things are organically organized as well as being able to search for things, now let's talk about albums. So this section over here looks a little bit convoluted when you first get into it, but it's basically just a way to organize your photos even further from both an automatic and a manual standpoint. So first you can see that I have a few albums on here. So everybody has a recents album, and then everybody has a favorites album. The favorites album, very self-explanatory. If you go into any photo and then press the little heart button, it'll automatically be added into your favorites library right here. And I use the favorites one a lot when I am creating these videos, especially for thumbnails, because I like to favorite maybe 2 or 3 thumbnail options, and then whenever I'm done with those, then I'll delete it from my favorites folder because I don't want it to get confusing in there. And then these albums over here to the right are all albums that I created on my own. So these are manually made albums that you can create, and you can create as many as you want. You can even press see all right here and get a better view of them. And then also, you then have all the albums down here, which are technically media types. These are all created by default as you start making these types of actual content or these types of photos and videos. So for instance, whenever you take a video, it'll always show up in this video folder no matter what. And this is also great for me because whenever I'm done with maybe some A-roll, I like to offload it onto an SSD and then delete it completely from my iPhone so it doesn't really take up that much more space. And then it starts to auto-categorize on its own. So for instance, you have a selfies folder, which is all about selfies. And again, it's using machine learning for this kind of stuff. You have live photos, which we're going to touch on in a little bit, portrait mode photos, panoramics, time lapses, slow-mo, cinematic, screenshots, screen recordings. You have spatial video, animated video, and then raw photos. So these are all the ones that are created by default. So whenever you take maybe a raw photo or a slow-mo video, it'll automatically not only show up in your recents folder, but it'll also show up in that specific folder that is automatically created for you. And then you have your utility folder. So imports is exactly what it sounds like. Anytime you import any photo in from any other device, whether it is another iPhone or a camera or a computer, it's going to show up in the imported section. For me, most of these imports are airdrop based. So when you do airdrop something, it'll show up over here, which is great to see. Then you have your duplicates folder, which is a utility folder. This is great because there are situations where maybe there is an iCloud photo that's being synced, but then you also airdrop something over, or maybe you take multiple photos of the same instance. It'll then group these together into duplicate photos, and you have a couple options here with the duplicates. You can merge them one by one, which does save you space. So it says the selected items are exact copies that may have different metadata. Merging them will keep one version of the duplicates that combines relevant data and move the rest to recently deleted. So you can see that each one of these is 4.6 gigs. You merge the two exact copies, and now it frees up 4.6 gigs because you're getting rid of one of them. So that's another way to kind of help you manage your storage both on the iCloud and on device storage wise. Obviously you can select them all and merge them all at once with this button right here, which is merge, and it shows you how many you're going to merge. You can deselect all, or you can select just a couple of them if you want to as well. And then you have your two folders down here, which is your hidden folder and then your recently deleted. So you can see that these are under lock right here. Basically the hidden folder, you can grab any photo. So let's go up to, let's go up to this photo right here. Go right here, you can actually press hide, and once you hide it, it's going to ask you again if you do want to hide this photo. You press hide, and then that photo will be completely removed from any photo album, any recent album, anything like that. It will only be visible in your hidden folder. So if I go in here and look at the hidden folder that's hidden by Face ID or your passcode, you can see that that photo is now in the hidden folder, and it's going to be nowhere else in my photo library. And if you want to, you can select it, go right here, and unhide it, and now it's gone. So that's your hidden folder. You can hide any type of media, whether it is photos, videos, or anything in between. And then you have a recently deleted. So whenever you do delete a photo, so for instance, if I go back into this one and actually go and delete this photo, it's not going to be removed from your device. It'll stay in your recently deleted for up to 30 days, and it's going to be hidden behind your passcode, and you can see that it's right here. So anytime you do delete a photo, it's going to go into your recently deleted. And now if you want all these to be actually fully deleted, you can select the items and actually delete them completely, and now they'll be completely removed from all your devices and all your Apple ID stuff, and removed from on device. So that is one way to clear out any photos. You need to delete it from your actual photo library and then delete it from your recently deleted. But now you can actually, like I said, create manual albums. So if we press this plus sign, you have a few options. You have a new album, a new folder, and then a new shared album. New album is exactly what it sounds like. We'll type in test right here, and you can add as many photos as you want, right? So if I want to add in these photos right here, we'll add those on. I now have a test album, which is right here, and I can access those photos. Now those photos will still be in your recent folder. It'll still be wherever they were before. It'll now just also be in this new test album. And now this other option, which is new folder, the difference between a folder and an album is that you actually save albums inside of folders. So for instance, a great example is we're going to go on a trip in a couple of weeks, and we're going to go to a few different locations. So maybe you want to create an album for each location, but then one folder for that entire trip. So we type in trip here, we'll press save. And then once you have your trip folder created, you got to go in here, you press edit, and then you have to actually create a new album every single time. So let's say we're going to the UK, we'll press save, and then you can start adding photos into there. So you have like an album inside of one. So we'll press done. You can see that you have your all photos album and then your other album, which is going to be that specific location, for instance. And then that's how you create folders with albums inside of them. So the next thing I want to touch on is maybe going into an actual photo and editing that photo, because it is very robust. And the first thing I'm going to show you is you can pull up any photo right now, and if you want to actually zoom in, this is a relatively new feature, you can zoom in and you can see that this little crop button immediately showed up. You can click on that crop button. So if I zoom in and out again, press that crop button, it's going to immediately crop to basically iPhone wallpaper size, and you can press done, and then you can set that as your wallpaper if you want to. So it has that kind of almost 2:1 aspect ratio if you do want to see that happen. So that's one way to edit a photo. So we can actually go back and we'll revert it, and that is how you actually revert back to the original photo. But now let's actually get into editing the photo itself. So if we press on the edit button, there's a bunch of ways to edit a photo inside of the native Photos app. So again, I'm not somebody that uses anything like Lightroom. I don't use any third-party editing applications aside from Affinity Photo, but that's more for thumbnail creation when it comes to multiple types of photos being layered on top of each other. But if I just want to edit one normal photo, I pretty much just press this auto button, and it's going to auto change depending on what it thinks it's going to be the best for you. And then you can also go in there and adjust each one manually and individually. So you have brilliance, and you have highlights and shadows and contrast. and brightness and saturation. And the way that you actually edit it is you go to the actual maybe variable that you want to change. So let's say I want to make this more saturated, and then there's a little scroll wheel here that then you can maximize all the way to the right or then all the way to the left to kind of almost gray it out. So that is how you manage each one. And then to reset it to the original value, you just tap back on that same exact kind of variable, and then you'll be good to go. And that is just when it comes to the different variables that you have right here, and you can go all the way to maybe a vignette as well. So you can make it be dark on the outside, or you can make it be light on the outside. But then you have your filters. So these are the built-in filters that you have, and it works the same way as those different variables that we were mentioning. So first you have your original, then you have a bunch of different ones like vivid and warm and vivid cool and dramatic, and then all these different ones like noir and monotone. And then same thing applies. So if you do like the vivid one, but you don't like the intensity of the vivid one, you can then have this scroll wheel here, which you can kind of take it down to 0, or you can take it all the way up to 100. So very easy to use. You kind of find out what your taste is, and you see exactly what you like, and then you can do that with your photos. And then you have your crop section. So I showed you how to crop at that 2:1 aspect ratio, but there's a bunch of cropping options. So firstly, you can switch them back and forth. You can rotate it 90 degrees. And then you have the auto button, which will basically auto crop right here, and it'll crop it to what they think is going to be the most correct way to do it. Maybe I wouldn't have cropped it this way, but that's what the iPhone and the machine learning protocol has for you. And you can easily toggle it off and on. And then you also have your different aspect ratios. So this is the original. You can then go to square. You can go to the wallpaper form, which is what I showed you, 9:16, 4:5, 3:5, and then you can also go in landscape mode, right? You can go 16:9, and it'll do that. And then once you do select that, if you want to zoom in more, you can then do that. So those are all different ways you can kind of crop your photos as you see fit. And then when you're done, you'll be good to go there. So I'm going to leave it at 16:9, and then once you're done with that, you actually have the ability to do even more so. So you can rotate it a certain way, either right or left. You then have the ability to vertically change it, so it's kind of like pulling it forward or pushing it away from you. And then you also have the ability to horizontally change it. So horizontally pull it closer or farther away from you. So you can really manipulate and really edit this photo down to the nitty gritty. And then lastly, you can also annotate it, right? So you have the markup tool. So if I want to draw maybe in white, I want to draw maybe a heart in the middle. You can do that, or squiggle around, or whatever the case is. And then it'll save that way. We'll press done. We'll press done again. And now this photo is completely changed up. But now one of my favorite features when it comes to all this editing is maybe you have a group of photos that you maybe want to edit with the same kind of edit because they're all under the same kind of lighting and things like that. So for instance, I have this iPad right here. I'm going to go with auto, but I'm also going to add maybe like a dramatic filter. I'm going to also adjust a little bit more when it comes to the shadows if I want to. So let's go with the shadows, make it a little bit brighter. We'll press done. And then let's say we have a couple other photos that are similar. You can actually press on the 3 dots here and go to where it says copy edits. We'll copy those edits, and now let's go to this one. As you can see, we'll go to the 3 dots again, and we'll actually paste those edits, and it'll kind of do that for you immediately without you having to go through the same exact editing process. And then another thing to notice is something called live photos. So live photos are exactly what it sounds like. It basically takes a photo, and it takes maybe a couple frames before and after that photo is taken. And you know it's a live photo when you see this little option right here. So if I click on this, you have a bunch of different options in order to actually use this live photo. So live photo, basically, if you long press, it'll move around a little bit, which is great to see. And this is awesome for when it actually comes to taking pictures of real things that matter, like your memories and things like that. But if I click on this, you can actually loop it. So basically it creates almost like a little video that you can share with people. You can bounce it, which is basically like the good old days when it was like an Instagram loop or anything like that. So as you can see, it's kind of moving on its own. You can completely do live off or leave it as live like this. So that is one thing to take into consideration. I would recommend leaving live photos on, especially if you don't care about your storage. Live photos do tend to take up a little bit more space. So if I swipe up, you can see that this is 3.2 megabytes. And if it wasn't a live photo, it'd probably be half that. So to each their own. If you do like your live photos, keep them on. If not, you can easily turn it off. And now the next thing I want to show you is this For You page. So this For You section is exactly what it sounds like. It's a section that Apple makes with their machine learning and their AI to give you these kind of moments that you want to bring back. So for instance, on this day, March 16, 2023, it creates this really nice kind of slideshow with music in the background that combines video and audio. You can swipe through it quickly. You can pause it right here. You can kind of see all the different photos and videos that were used in this actual memory, which is cool to see. So you can actually click on one of these memories and actually share with other people because it does share in video format. So you can share with somebody who doesn't even have an iPhone if you want to, via AirDrop, iMessage, mail, whatever the case is. And it's just a really nice way to kind of remember in the past. Like for instance, this was in 2022, so almost 2 years ago. And it continuously learns more. And then you can also even favorite each one, which is something that I do pretty frequently. So if I want to save this one, I can save it, and then it's going to be there in the future for me to check out. So that is an awesome feature, which I like just for sentimental reasons, but that is called Memories that automatically gets done for you, and it's very easy to use, and you can customize it as you see fit. and you can see other ones that are shared with you over time, which is very cool. So now this last section I want to show off is kind of just like the nice to haves and things that people don't really know about. So firstly, the first thing I'm going to show off is if you take a picture of a subject, so for instance this iPad is here, you can actually long press and actually move this right here, so I can copy it and just take the actual subject and go into a note and actually paste that anywhere I want. So if I want to paste it here, you can see that I now have the picture of just a subject. And this is great for anybody that wants to maybe make some other images or maybe put a new background on it, and it works relatively well. It's not absolutely perfect, but for everyday users and somebody who isn't really pixel peeping, it does work very well. So that, I don't really know what the word is or the feature is called, but you can essentially just pull the subject out, which is so sick. And then you also have something called live text. So if I zoom in here, you can actually see that there's actual text here. I can actually grab this text as if it's a normal text, copy it, go back to that note, and actually paste that same exact text. And now this works with pretty much anything, and I've seen some pretty bad scribble handwriting that it's able to copy. It's not always perfect, but I would say 95% of the time it works well, especially when it's very legible text. If the text is legible to you, it's going to be legible to the actual computer and the iPhone itself, and it works extremely well. And then another thing that you can do with this is actually, if I want to take that actual subject again and long press right here to pull the subject, I can actually do something called create a sticker. So if I grab this, let it load up, add sticker, you can create an actual sticker that is made that can be used in the future in iMessages, and I can even add effects to it, maybe like a comic style, a puffy style, a shiny style. And as you can see, we have a bunch of those right here, and these are all pulled from images that I've taken just with my regular Photos app. And then lastly, what I want to show off is this button right here. So this button basically highlights everything that involves live text. So if I click on this, basically you can then zoom in and see exactly what you can copy, what it sees, what it's reading. And this also works great with QR codes. So if you have an image of a QR code and you press that button, you will be able to then interact with that QR code and go to that respective link or whatever that QR code is sending you to. So that is everything that you see with the Photos application. As you can see, it's pretty robust. I don't know how long this video is going to be, but hopefully you learned something. Let's finish up this video and go back to the normal view, everybody. So hopefully now you have a much better understanding of what you can actually do with the Photos app, because yes, at first glance it's just kind of this disorganized mess of most recent photos taken from your camera to your Photos application, but it's much more than that when it comes to filters and being able to organize it correctly and adding captions and live text and visual lookup. Like I mentioned, the Photos app is extremely robust now, and I just want to make sure that you guys have all the tools needed to fully take advantage of it. But that's going to do for this video, everybody. If you learned something new, leave a comment down below of a feature that you didn't know about that maybe now you know and you're going to be using moving forward. Or maybe there's some features that I left out that you use on a day-to-day basis that I should include in a follow-up video. But like I mentioned, that's going to do it. If you made it to the end, leave a little dolphin in the comments down below so I know you made it to the end. And if you guys want to watch some more videos like this one about iOS, iPadOS, macOS, visionOS, and everything in between, click on one of these videos right here. And until next time, I'm Fernando, and I'm out of here, everybody. Peace.